Welcome to the Bookers Alliance podcast, where we hold the pencil and the pencil is power. Coming at you right now is your host, Marky Mark, along with the man, the myth, the legend, Frank Donaldson. Join us as we discuss the ever-changing landscape of professional wrestling. So hang on tight, you jabronis, and enjoy the ride. Hey, welcome in. Thank you for joining today's episode of the Bookers Alliance podcast. Got your host here, Marky Mark, co-host here, Frank Donaldson. Frank, how we doing today, man?
Oh, we're doing good. Happy Friday morning to our listeners out here. Those of you who are listening live on drop day, those of you who listen later on, happy good morning, happy good afternoon, and happy good evening to you.
Merry Christmas, Hanukkah, Happy New Year.
Give us what you got. Wherever you're at, we're here with you.
Yeah, in today's episode, we're the Bookers Alliance podcast. So today's episode is brought to you by Booker's Whiskey.
All right. Booker T.
Booker T, Booker's Alliance, Booker's Jim Beam.
All right. Booker, book me a drink of it here. Let's start out the podcast right here.
Absolutely. Cheers, sir.
All right.
Absolutely. Some fine tasting bourbon out of Kentucky.
All right.
They get a Kentucky hug going.
There you go. That's the way to get us on tune for the podcast.
There we go. All right, so pull yourself up a ringside seat here, folks, and listen to the stories, because it's story time, baby.
Oh, yeah. There you go. It's exciting times. So what do we always say? What's the theme of the podcast? It's a good time to be a wrestling fan. Well, we're fans, and it's a good time for us, so let's get into it.
Absolutely. Going into the weekend here, we got Crown Jewel coming up.
Crown Jewel. Early Saturday deal. So.
Early Saturday. And for those who will be watching live, tune in to the pre-show, because apparently there's going to be a match on the pre-show.
All right. Well,
Sami Zayn
so it's starting at noon, huh?
Yeah, it's starting at noon.
Good Lord. That's going to make for a long, interesting day. But.
Yeah, it'll be a pre-show and then probably a 3-hour show. So.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it won't be an AEW deal. It won't.
No, you won't be there.
We don't have to reserve
later.
our whole day. No. I mean, the whole weekend in shot. We'll be able to get some other stuff accomplished.
Yeah, so it looks like this one is being main evented by our tribal chief. Let's pay our respects. Let's acknowledge him.
All right.
He is going up against L.A. Knight.
Yeah. No.
Oh, you're not giving L.A. Knight the chance.
Unfortunately, this is going to be, I think we brought it up last week, this is going to be a more get over, not go over type situation for L.A. Knight, because, he ain't winning this title this night.
I'm going to tell you, he might not win that title, but good God almighty did he win Friday night.
Yeah, I mean, hey, you got to take your wins where you can get them. And, they were recording SmackDown for this upcoming week out there. So, you figure you get him over now. You don't really have to do anything, to let him get his heat back or, let Roman get his heat back on the upcoming show. I'm sure they will, but they really don't because, Roman goes over at the pay-per-view. But if he can go over and pull L.A. Knight up to his level with him, hey, that gives him another dance partner for the whole winter.
But I did see somebody tell L.A. Knight thank you, and I would also like to tell L.A. Knight thank you for saving me 9 minutes of Roman Reigns' introduction.
Good Lord, we'd have been there. We'd have signed in all day for that. So.
He just come right on out, guns blazing.
First time that happened.
I've never seen it like that before.
So thinking back in the past, I feel like Stone Cold did that to Rocky before. So
I would agree that would have been there.
So I feel like that's where the inspiration came from because L.A. Knight's like the modern day Stone Cold character. Roman Reigns is the tribal chief of today, referencing the old tribal chief, the old school, The Rock, that, all that. I feel like they borrowed a little bit from it, but hey, it worked. I mean, and how many people are really going to correlate those two? So
yeah, but I enjoyed that whole presentation. I enjoyed him swinging his seat around to the head of the table. Yeah. That was classic.
Yeah, that was. So they're doing the right things with him. I don't know whose idea it was, but hilarious stuff.
So tell it's old Michael P.S. Hayes.
I could see that.
Yeah,
I could see that.
Supposedly, him and Paul Heyman are the sole producers of Roman and anything that Roman is in.
That makes sense.
So
I could see those two. I could see him. Yeah. I could see him and Paul sitting down in a room and just going crazy with the ideas. And then
Michael Hayes did a lot of Stone Cold stuff.
Yeah. DX. He did a lot of that irreverent stuff.
He gets that rebellion. So, I mean, that was his character anyway, as the Freebirds.
USA, yeah. So if anybody could do it, that's why I said I could see him and Paul sitting down and saying, how disrespectful can we be? And then you just go, just throw a whole bunch of stuff up on the wall. And then you bring Triple H in there to find out what actually stuck. And then he's like, all right, I take this one and this one.
Yep.
And then they're like, but what about these other 50? This one and this one. And then they rolled out, they did the entrance interruption. Then he did the table thing. Then the rest of it was kind of par for the course. But that little bit was so much fun, it made it exciting for the rest of it, even though you kind of knew where it was going.
Yeah, and I give Roman a 99.99% chance of retaining.
That's less than that's way less than I'm giving him. I'm like $110, $115.
In the state of WWE, as it's always been said, never say never. You never know when they might pull that just on an off chance, just to see what the hell happens.
So in the Triple H era, I don't feel like Triple H does anything in the off chance. Everything he does seems so calculated.
If he did it, that would probably be the most questioned thing to date.
Yeah, absolutely, by far.
Yeah.
Well, except for Vince's mustache, because
well, he didn't choose Vince to wear that mustache.
I hope he didn't advise him. I hope he didn't say, because Triple H has always had the facial hair. I hope he wasn't like, Vince, have you ever thought about facial hair? Because good God,
the old story goes he would never grow a mustache because the mustache can never win.
Well, there you go. Vince has always been clean shaven. I'd like to see him go full gray beard. First of all, he needs to start blackening the thing. He needs to stop with the hair color.
Yeah, let the gray be.
Let
Vince.
that gray be.
Let it gray be.
But I want him to go full beard. I want him to go full Santa. That would be
Santa.
awesome.
Mick Foley.
Exactly. I want to see him go full Santa, full beard, just raggedy. Don't even get the Daniel Bryan hairdo going.
Speaking of raggedy, that appearance he made in Saudi Arabia, man,
woo!
he's looking a bit raggedy.
That was raggedy, yeah.
It's hard to see him walking with that cane like that.
Well, so I think I told you, I know I told some other people, when Undertaker was looking at him, Undertaker kind of looked at him in character like, I'll be seeing you soon.
Vince.
Then he clicked back in like, oh, hell, I'm retired.
Digging holes and taking souls.
I ain't got to worry about that no more. I'm retired. But yeah, he was looking at old Vince hobbling around out there. And then when they got in the ring, somehow another Undertaker disappeared, but they had Vince sitting with Mike Tyson and Eminem. So what the hell? Have you ever seen an odder couple?
So the going joke right now is name that 90s wrestling faction.
Well, so Eminem would have been part of what, the Nation? When they had the two little guys that were out there jumping around before D-Lo and them got there. Yep. Now, let's see. Vince would have been the corporation. And then Mike was DX. So, they all played a role somewhere in there. But, whew, Lord.
Yeah, so for those that caught that fight, throw us something on our socials. Let us know what you thought about that, because we're of the opinion that the right person did not get that split victory.
That's what they call a little bit of screwing.
Yeah, a little bit. That was a Riyadh screw job.
Well, I feel like that's why they had Vince over there, because Vince probably had to produce it.
He had to show him how to do it.
Yeah, he's like, so this is how it gets done. Yeah. He's like, you don't want to make it too obvious. You don't want, and then of course they got Mike Tyson in there, but Mike Tyson's been screwed more in boxing than any other man walking the planet. So.
I will say this though, for those who follow MMA in the boxing world, Francis Ngannou looked good.
Yeah,
for his first boxing match, straight up boxing
match against the what is it, the lineal heavyweight champ. Let's put it like this: Tyson Fury's fought pretty much everybody in boxing currently, and nobody's done to him what this guy did. This guy came out of nowhere and literally sent him into nowhere, because, he had Fury on the floor.
His form looked good. His punches looked good. His cardio looked good. He lasted 10 rounds. Didn't look like he was breathing deep until about 8 or 9. He looked good.
Fury looked like he was breathing deep around that third round. When Fury hit that ground, when he hit that mat, did you see how he looked at him when he realized he had gotten the ring with the wrong dude?
I thought you was going to say Fury looked like he was breathing a little hard in the middle, because that was the heaviest that man's ever fought at.
Well, as a professional boxer, he had to be looking at this as like an exhibition.
He fought at 284.
He didn't put his all into it like he did in previous fights and, against Wilder and things like that. Because he had to figure out, I'll put this guy down in a couple of rounds. This is like a Logan Paul type fight. well, Logan Paul and Jake Paul and the guy, he brought it to him as if to say, don't take this as an exhibition because now your exhibition is on your ass right now.
He got popped over top of that ear and that put him on the ground. And he looked up and he was like, oh, crap.
That's when he realized he was in a real fight.
He was in a real fight.
Oh, hell, you ain't exhibitioning, are you? He's like, you're not out here for play. You're out here for serious.
This is a one-off Riyadh, belt, but damn, you tried to take it.
Yeah, he was like, yeah. I mean, he didn't have a belt to defend or anything. It didn't like he was getting ready to, lose his world championship. So it was just an exhibition fight, I guess you want. But yeah, I don't think everybody got that memo because Fury was like, this ain't fun no more. He's like, I got to get in here and fight.
But going back into the world of professional wrestling, we also have a main event match coming up of Seth Rollins versus Drew McIntyre. And I'm almost on the edge of willing to bet that Drew might walk home with this, but I just don't know going into Survivor Series. Like, do you really want Drew carrying this belt into Survivor Series? Because he's not going to be able to build a program with somebody in a few weeks. True, but it depends on where they're going. I mean, he'd already have a program with Seth, so I mean, you could obviously do an automatic rematch. Maybe it's something we're not seeing. Maybe it's Drew gets a hold of it and Damian Priest cashes in. That could happen. Drew does have a feud going with with Jey Uso. Yep. Maybe you could get him and Jey in there. Main event Jey. Yeah, Jey would be his first opponent. Because they've been beefing ever since Jey got over to Raw. There's a couple things they could do with it, but I read it somewhere last week. Somebody said, when Seth Rollins is the champion, everybody's clamoring for him to be a champion. As soon as he wins the title, everybody can't wait for him to lose it. Now, I don't know if I'm always in that vein of thought, but I'm starting to get in that vein of thought now. I feel like his reign it didn't give me enough. I feel like it's ran its course. Yeah, he's wrestled a lot. I mean, he's got the belt on TV a lot. He brought credibility to it, but now I feel like it's kind of time for him to, pass it along. And usually your face does better in the chase role. Yeah. And he's not chasing it, so I mean, and he ain't Hulk Hogan. I mean, no. When the WWE has babyface champions, they're usually the biggest, strongest, baddest, guy they got going, right? Who can, like when John Cena was champ, he could fend off everybody because it was super believable, and he could work with everybody because of his size. Seth's work rate allows him to work with everybody, but when he starts beating the Lesnars of the world and the Lashleys of the world, and you're looking at it like, well, wait a minute, the Drew McIntyres, you're like, damn, can he just beat everybody? What is he, Roman Reigns 2.0? I wouldn't mind seeing, though, I really wouldn't mind seeing the scenario play out of he escapes with the victory by the skin of his teeth, and then Priest cashes in on him. I wouldn't mind seeing that because I really do feel like they've got to get that briefcase off Priest. So, yeah, and I was going to say it is a great way to get the briefcase off of him. That's an albatross right now on him. Yeah, and plus with the tag belts, I mean, they're just doing too much right now. Yeah. They've got the whole Judgment Day has titles, and he's got this briefcase. I mean, there's just so much going on. But I would like to see, since we are the Booker's Alliance, and this is nowhere near the topic of what we were going to talk about today, I would like to see him get the belt for him to turn his back on the Judgment Day and Finn have to chase him in a match for the belt. I don't know if that's a good angle to go into Survivor Series with, because I feel like you kind of need those team things still built up. Yeah. So I feel like they kind of need the whole unity thing right now, because you got to have some big time faction to face in Survivor Series. Maybe they are that faction at Survivor Series, and that's where he turns his back on the group. That could happen. I mean, the screw jobs always happen at Survivor Series. That's the best place to have them. Just my only thing is, if I'm looking at Drew with the title and then I'm looking at Priest with the title, I feel like Drew with the title is a stronger carry. Plus they owe Drew, Drew carried them through the pandemic, for Christ's sake, when nobody was there to care. People would, you had video walls cheering him on. They owe Drew a decent title reign, be it good guy, bad guy, however you want to swing that. They owe him a good title reign. It doesn't have to be super long. If he carries it to the Rumble, okay. If the Rumble, depending on what storyline they have, maybe even to WrestleMania, because he wanted it at a WrestleMania. Maybe he gets to walk into WrestleMania with it, drops it there. There's a lot of things they could do, but I mean,
since that title reign, Drew kind of flailed around in the mid card, and he sneaked around in the main event with Roman, and then the Bloodline put him back down, and then he just immediately fell back to the mid card.
And then he was hurt, and he had to take some time.
Yeah, and then the whole contract thing came up. So I mean, at some point, they do owe Drew a good title reign in front of fans, where he can either be booed or cheered. Yeah. And he can win it in front of a group and lose it in front of a group.
I will say, old Matt Riddle did him a favor, though.
Who?
Getting himself fired.
Oh, Matt Riddle, wow. I had to go back in the memory banks there. I'm like, who the hell are we talking about here?
Yeah, Matt Riddle, he was getting saddled with him in a tag team there, and I feel like Drew...
What was going to be their name?
The McGriddle.
The McGriddle. Oh, my God. So, yeah.
That was definitely a Vince McMahon thing.
If I'm Drew, I'm like, thank God that dude got fired. Because, he was going down quick, and he was taking it with him. That was almost another three-man band situation starting there if he was McGriddle.
Hey, man, come on. Don't throw Heath Slater under the bus like
dude,
that.
I
got kids, man.
I completely understand. You're his biggest fan. I understand that's like your soul animal. I
Absolutely.
get it. But yeah, no.
Say no.
Yeah, no. That ain't gonna work for me, brother.
All right, let's move on over to the last current kind of news we want to talk about. We want to talk about the match that happened between Kenny Omega and MJF.
Good match.
Ooh, what a classic that was.
Yeah.
That was a great match.
I'm sure Meltzer in the midst of lotioning up and all that other. I'm sure he went like 58 stars.
58 stars in the Tokyo Dome.
In the Tokyo Dome, and Matt Classic and blah blah blah, and then so throw out the tube sock later. I get all that probably went down, but I don't like the rating system so much. I just like to appreciate what I saw.
Correct.
And I definitely appreciate what I saw.
So I had no idea what to expect when that match got announced. I was like, okay. I
expected more people to see it in the arena. My God. I mean, when you know MJF and Kenny Omega are getting ready to wrestle, you think you can sell out, but why not?
That's true.
We digress. We're not getting into that today.
But as far as the different styles that they've got, MJF, for better or for worse, he is stuck in the weirdest title reign that I've ever seen. Some moments are great, some moments are a bust, some storylines are fantastic, some don't make any sense.
Somehow or another, he started the title run as a super heel, and now he's like a super face and
white meat baby face.
Yeah, but there wasn't like a double turn or anything. No, I mean he's not even. I don't know how he got to where we are right now. I just know he got there and he took the belt along with him and just kind of waiting to see where it all plays out.
But the match itself, though, when it first started, I was like, okay. I was like, who's going to assume the role of heel?
Yeah.
Because they've both been heels within AEW. Yeah. And I was like, which one?
And they're both definitely not dislikable. My God.
Right. So I was like, well, which one of them's going to do what? And then as the match unfolded, you quickly realized this isn't about like the belt. This is about...
Well, the belt wasn't even there, so hopefully, thank God it wasn't about the belt, because that would have been a nightmare.
Don't get me on that one.
So now we got to bring it up, because you're having a world heavyweight title match.
Without the belt even in the ring.
So what if Kenny Omega had won? Let's just play devil's advocate.
Well, would you bring Jay White down and have him give him the belt?
Exactly, because he ain't giving it to MJF, so it isn't like he'd be like, oh, well, you won it in the match, so I got to give it. Yeah, hell, at this point now, you're just flip-flopping guys. So going into it, you knew there was no way that that Kenny Omega was winning. Honestly, I figured it was going to wander itself into some kind of time limit thing, because that's kind of the easy out that AEW does. So I was happy to see that they let the match go.
I didn't like the Don Callis thing. I didn't like that, but I understand where it came from.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, what that match was really about was kind of two things. It was respect and it was passing the torch.
Yeah.
That's kind of, and if anybody caught the clip afterwards where they both got on the mic and said what they had to say, you kind of realize, Kenny Omega realizes, I'm at the end of my time. I'm kind of...
He's getting there.
Although
he wouldn't have to be. I mean...
if he would stop flip-flopping and flying.
Exactly. if he just took a few minutes to look over at the career of AJ Styles.
Don't get dropped on your head so many times.
What, AJ's 7 years in the WWE now? He bought himself an extra 7 years on his time by going to the WWE, where they've constructed safe rings and things like that. They don't work.
no pile drivers,
Killer Man Styles, and
no
things
pile
like
drivers,
that.
no
Exactly.
chair shots to the head.
Right. They're like, hey, let's protect the talent. We need you here longer. If he could just adopt some of that, he could probably buy himself another 2-3 extra years on top of whatever he's got left. But as he said, that ain't his style. You know, he's got to do his own thing. And I've come to learn over time, people that do their own thing ain't always the safest and the securest of people. But
right. And I'm never going to throw Kenny Omega under the bus. He's one of my all-time favorites. I've followed his career for a long time. Love what that guy does in the ring. But in that match, it was more or less of, is MJF finally on that level?
Yeah.
Does MJF carry that clout that a Kenny Omega carries?
Well,
and what we found out was absolutely,
yeah,
he's up there.
Going into the match, when they announced it, I kind of looked at it as, you know, a tale of two cities, because I'm like, you got MJF who, you know, and I've questioned his in-ring work before, you know, and then he had the match with Daniel Bryan, and I was like, okay, you know, he hung with Daniel Bryan. Apparently he can go in the ring, but his mic skills are his heavy, you know, whatever he does in the ring is always going to play second fiddle to his talking, because that's just what he does best. Kenny Omega, completely the opposite. Kenny Omega never should talk. He should talk less than Tony Khan. They should have they should play like the silent game that kids play, you know, who don't talk first. But it would do both of those two dudes wonders. But Kenny Omega in the ring is, you know, he's gold. I mean, you know, he's ridiculous in the ring. Everything he does looks crisp. Everything he does looks sharp. I mean, he does moves that nobody would even try to do at this point in time because they want to live. But, you know, he does them and he executes them, you know, flawlessly. So I'm looking at it like, hey, you got, you know, a great talker versus a great in-ring worker. That don't always math its way out to looking like a, you know, something good in there. But fact of the matter is, I mean, MJF can go in the ring. He can keep up with those
Sometimes
guys.
the math don't have to math.
Well, not in that situation.
You get a unprecedented, undocumented kind of a surprise.
Yeah.
And that was really a really good surprise. The fact that, you know, we saw MJF pull out a few moves out of the bag that we've never seen. A backwards dive out of the ring that just came out of nowhere.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
But I will give Kenny Omega credit for that, because if he wouldn't have caught him.
Yeah, that's why I said that was kind of weird looking, because
Max kind of overshot
slid
him
to where he needed to be.
Yeah.
Otherwise, Max may still be in that ring trying. They be getting him up with a spatula right now, as Gorilla Monsoon used to say.
But great match all around. That was a fantastic match. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch it. You know, we'll give.
Well, I know you weren't there, so obviously we're not going to say, you know, tell us your in-person perspective on it, because we know you wasn't there, because nobody was. But
oh man,
you could definitely have seen it on television, which that came up in an earlier conversation too. It's like, you know, why give a match like that away on free TV? You know, why not make people pay for it on the pay-per-view? Well, the fact of the matter is, the attendance is why you give it away on free TV.
Yep.
Because you want people to think, oh my God, you know, if I go to the next event, the next time AEW's in town, I might see MJF versus Kenny Omega. You ain't worried about what you're going to see at the pay-per-view now. At this point, if you got to pay $70 to see it, you knew long before any matches were announced whether or not you were paying $70 or not.
At least they gave it.
Going to the event now, it's like, well, wait a minute. If you're going to give me that quality of match, I'm more interested to go.
At least they gave it 3 days advertisement.
3 whole days.
3 whole days.
All right. And then you run it on Saturday night against
college football,
and on the heels of that
World
Tyson
Series.
Fury fight. Yeah, the World Series thing was all in there. It's like, okay, if you couldn't have picked the busiest weekend ever to do it, why not do it now? But they definitely could have done it this weekend, because, I mean, people are going to get their fill at Crown Jewel.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's get on into our topic for today.
Hell, that wasn't the topic?
No, that was just the intro.
We only got 10 minutes left. I mean, we're at this point now.
We got about 20.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, at this point now, we done milked it out. Yeah, we might as well just ride it out now. But okay, so yeah, we still got plenty of time.
All right, so the topic today is welcome back.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
All right, now I got the singing chops.
Yeah, we got to give them a good welcome back. I mean, I'm excited to see where it goes.
And we're talking about TNA.
TNA, total nonstop action.
Or Well, wait a minute. We're PG. We can't say the other one, can we?
Yeah, we get Trish and Albert.
Trish and Albert.
Yeah, Test and Albert.
Trish had a part to play in that TNA.
Absolutely, yeah. Otherwise, nobody would ever saw that tag team.
No, nobody wanted to see that hairy looking ape that Albert was.
The only TNA we were looking at was, who's that girl that's coming out with those two big dudes? That's kind of where that wandered.
So for those that are, the header in the clouds, you're catching our reference of what TNA really actually stood for.
Yeah, the acronym that kind of, killed TNA wrestling at its start, because everybody was like, well, this is going to be lowbrow. This is going to be, lesser than because of the name. But
total nonstop action, and if you haven't heard, Impact Wrestling has been out there for a while. It was previously TNA. And then it's just became a full circle. It's evolved. It's went back around, and now we're back to TNA Wrestling.
Which when they changed to Impact Wrestling, I knew then. I was like, well, I ain't be watching this much longer.
It's over.
Yep, I knew then. I was like, well, there's the nail in the coffin right there. So this will be off TV in about a week.
So the rumor goes. Do you know the real rumor about why the name was changed?
To Impact or to TNA?
To Impact.
No, give me what you got.
The real rumor is it was changed to Impact to avoid bankruptcy.
Oh, I definitely didn't hear that.
So TNA rebranded itself into a different corporation called Impact Wrestling and could operate continuously while paying some of the back pay that TNA had to pay.
Oh, gotcha.
That was their way of keeping the door open, supposedly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
There definitely may be something to that. I mean, I don't not remember hearing anything about TNA, being happy to pay bills and, people were, money was flowing like the river. I don't remember.
They brought in Hulk Hogan, for Christ's sake.
Yeah. So from what I've listened to on Jeff Jarrett's podcast, I think that was a Spike thing.
Yeah.
I think Spike kind of handled that contract. Eric Bischoff. Nature Boy came in around that time. Nature Boy's back in wrestling while we're thinking about
Nature Boy is back.
Nature Boy popped back up on TBS, and it was interesting to see Nature Boy on Turner Broadcasting again. I was like, whew. Okay, well.
That's a throwback.
Yeah, damn. That's putting it lightly.
To be the man, you got to be the man.
Sting and Shivani were in the ring at the same time.
Oh, yeah, my childhood came flooding right
back. There you go. All I was thinking of is, damn, that's exactly how WCW died, with these three in the ring, and now we're going to replay and run it back? Okay.
I was just hoping, though. I was like, please, Flair, don't take off your jacket and drop an elbow.
Oh, hell.
But he did chop Sting.
Did you see that? Yeah,
he did chop Sting.
I don't know if we could call that a chop. I feel like
he was attempt at a chop.
I thought he was trying to rub baby oil on Sting's chest. Because I mean, hell, that chop. Even after Rick did it, I think Rick's right pinky broke when he did it, because he was like, I was like, yep, Rick died right there in the ring.
But TNA coming back. So we wanted to talk about the glory days of what we saw for TNA. Glory days, bound for glory. I mean, that was one of their pay-per-views. What was another one? Different
pay-per-views they had? Oh, they had like Slammiversary, Hardcore, Hard Justice. I mean, they had a lot.
Lockdown.
Yeah, Lockdown was one. Lockdown. That wasn't a highlight. Every match being in a steel cage.
I remember Kurt about died in one of those matches.
Yeah, he tried to. I think he did a moonsault off top of the cage. Yeah, off one of the cage, which looked amazing. But
I think he about died.
Yeah. I don't think the landing was what he expected and all that. But.
Yeah. So when TNA first busted onto the scene, what really kind of drew your attention to TNA, first and foremost, the six-sided ring.
Well,
the only people doing a six-sided ring at that point was AAA down in Mexico.
Yep.
Six-sided ring, if you've not seen one, it first off, it's jarring, it's crazy looking, especially if you're a long-time wrestling fan.
Yeah.
You look at that, you're going, I don't know what that is.
But I mean, for marketing, like think about like toy sales. You know, you got. Everybody's got something the same, square side, four-sided ring and all that one. Now you got something different where kids are like, I don't know what this TNA thing is, but that's cool.
That's cool.
So, I want to see it in action. So now you find yourself on TV looking for this six-sided ring.
And the second thing that usually caught your attention about TNA was the X Division. That was probably the first thing that kind of drew me into TNA as like, who are these people? Why are they flying around the ring so much, first of all?
Yeah, definitely.
What style of wrestling is this? And so the X Division, it had a style of wrestling that was kind of cruiserweight, kind of meshed with luchador, What else would you throw in there?
Well,
technical,
hardcore. I mean,
hardcore.
the cages wandered themselves in there. What is it? Ultimate X, where they had the belt suspended on a big X in the ring that you had to shimmy across the rope, suspended 15 feet above the ring. Yep. Somehow or another, you had to crawl across the rope to get that. I mean, they did some innovative stuff. Innovative is going to be the term that we're going to use for that today.
Some of your stars that was in the X division, you had your Christopher Daniels, you had your AJ Styles, Samoa Joe. Even though Samoa Joe didn't really fit the weight class, but he fit the style.
So that was the thing. TNA, they always
didn't care about a weight class.
Yeah, they didn't have it. The X division was, it ain't about rules. It's about this. Yep. And, but when you look back at it, it's like, well, what is this? When you don't make rules, when you don't make parameters, it's just like organized chaos. And that's kind of what it wandered itself into.
Frankie Kazarian was in there. Yeah,
Kaz was in there.
Sanjay Dutt was in there.
He was in there. Elix Skipper was in there.
Suicide. Remember Suicide?
Suicide, yeah. Suicide was their video game creation that they put under the hood. That was Kaz and Christopher Daniels. And
then eventually it became TJ Perkins.
Yeah. So, I mean, before he left for WWE. So, Then Suicide became Manic.
Yep.
Remember they changed it to Manic for a while.
EY, Eric Young was in there.
Yep.
So the X Division had some really cool people, some heavy hitters, big names that when you look at it now and you're going, man, where are these people? Well, a lot of these people are either
TV now.
They're on your TV. They're either in AEW or they're backstage producers, or I mean, they're still around.
Well, they're backstage producers because that X Division style won't let them wrestle in the ring no more. So now they're kind of semi-retired.
Winner, chicken dinner, sir.
Yeah, I mean, hey. What do they say? One in the hand, two in the butt.
Yeah.
It was good while it was happening.
So I will say some of those Ultimate X matches, probably some of the damnedest things I've ever seen in my life. My favorite TNA wrestler, and I'll let you talk about yours in a minute, but my favorite TNA wrestler came out of the X Division, and that was Petey Williams.
Okay.
I loved Petey Williams. He was my favorite, my go-to. I loved the style that he had, and of course the move that he invented that everybody bastardizes these days, the Canadian Destroyer.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's about as bastardized as the DDT.
And the super kick. I mean,
super kick.
Take your pick at this point.
But the first time you saw Petey Williams hit a Canadian Destroyer, I sat up from my chair and I was like, what was that?
Absolutely, yeah. 'Cause I mean, it was fast, and it was, but they showed it on multiple replays, and you're just like, how did
that happen? About like the first time you saw Scott Steiner do the Frankensteiner.
Speaking of Scott Steiner, nice transition there, because that's what I'm sitting over here thinking. I'm just waiting for my opening to talk about Big Petey Pump.
Petey Pump.
Good God in heaven. What in the world? They took the cast off of building a Scott Steiner doll and took all the leftover parts and formed them together into Little Petey Pump.
Yeah, that was a sudden.
They had Petey Williams.
I was in for the ride, sir. I was in for it.
It made sense though, because I mean, he originated the Canadian Destroyer. Scott Steiner originated the Frankensteiner, or at least he Americanized.
He wasn't the only one though to take a riff off somebody. What about Black Machismo?
Black Machismo was great.
Jay Lethal.
Do you remember the woo off that Black Machismo did with Ric Flair? Good Lord, yeah. Somehow or another he transitioned out of Black Machismo into Bleacher Boy. Not Nature Boy, but Black Nature Boy is Bleacher Boy.
So if you've not seen the woo off between Jay Lethal and Ric Flair, YouTube that. That is an amazing moment.
Watching that, if you're a fan of wrestling and you haven't seen it, first of all, what are you doing with your life? Because I mean, that's must-see TV if there ever was any. But that was, those types of things were the off-the-wall deals that put TNA on the map. They made them relevant in a world where they shouldn't have been.
Some of the factions that came through TNA were probably some of the most memorable factions to happen as far as Main Event Mafia.
Main Event Mafia.
Dude, when you look at Kurt, Sting, Big Sexy Kevin
Kurt
Nash.
Angle, I would bring it up. Kurt wrestled longer in TNA than he did in WWE. He
Kurt
made more
had an amazing
career than he did in WWE.
Kurt had an amazing career in TNA.
Absolutely, yeah.
Especially the empty arena lights out match between him and Sting.
Oh, I thought you meant the empty arena match that Kenny Omega and MJF just had.
But I got to get a rim shot sound effect.
Yeah, we got to work on it. We got to get our production levels up. We got to get our
Come on, producer, get with it now.
That's what we're working on next. We got to get our production up now, because that was
a good one. That was a good one.
There you go. But yeah, I mean, they had Kurt, Sting. I mean, Sting probably had just as an effective run in TNA as the WCW version of his career. Now, he did a lot in NWA, with winning his first title and things like that. But if you take his WCW, so 91, 92, whenever they officially branded, up till 2001 when they closed, I mean, I feel like Sting's TNA run was just as strong as that.
So my favorite version of Sting comes out of TNA. Joker.
Joker,
Sting, by far. And he tapped into that just a fraction in AEW.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they let it go. And I feel like that's going to be a missed opportunity.
If we're wandering over, we could talk about another TNA startup that developed in TNA and then got carried over to AEW and dropped real quick, and that was Matt Hardy, Broken Matt.
Well, Matt wasn't in the TNA version; he was in the Impact version.
True, but in the same. I mean, it's all the same. Okay. They wove it all in together, but
the broken gimmick.
Yeah, just the broken gimmick as a whole.
Yeah. Him and Jeff.
Yeah, when they started that. I mean, it was the hottest thing in wrestling for no other reason than it was so creative. It's just my goodness.
Even Jeff got super creative. He created another character called Willow.
Yeah, he made himself a whole new wrestler where he thought he had a new lease on life, but his same old body couldn't take no more hits under any other mask.
Too outside the ring.
Well, yeah, that's different subject there.
But other factions that ran through TNA though, going back, Aces and Eights.
Yeah,
Bully Ray. That's the strongest that probably you'll ever see him in a singles run. Is his Aces and Eights gimmick.
Everybody that was in Aces and Eights. I mean, that was a whole handful of second tier guys that elevated themselves up to the main roster, strictly stealing out of Sons of Anarchy.
But talking about long-term storytelling though, that arc went for a while.
Yeah.
And then it finally, when it turned at the end, how it all kind of unraveled, you're going, holy crap, that's been there under my nose the whole entire time and I never knew it.
Right.
And Bully
just let it sit there.
And Bully's even won't go on record on Busted Open talking about how that all came to be. And he talked about how it came down to storytelling.
Yeah. And that's what it was. Yeah. It was just classic storytelling, where sure it was borrowing from the NWO. Okay, yeah. Sure it straight stole from Sons of Anarchy. Okay, we got all that. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, they took a bunch of guys who weren't really doing much of anything. They were a bunch of second tier guys who just, they weren't going to get themselves to the main event level just because that, they banded them together, put little vests on them and called it one. Before you know it, I mean, they were all credible people. They were in all main events. They got title runs. A lot of success came out of that Aces and Eights storyline. Whereas when it was first originated, it was just called a ripoff.
Yep. Some other things that were beautiful that came out of TNA before it moved over to Impact. The tag team division was smoking hot.
Oh yeah,
it was incredible. One of the best of 7 series that I've ever seen in my life was between Motor City Machine Guns and Beer Money.
Oh yeah,
that was fantastic. First things first, Alex Shelley and Christopher Sabin.
There you go, Chris Sabin.
Them dudes can just go.
Yeah.
I mean, holy crap. I mean,
Alex Shelley's the champ over there now. Yeah. So, I guess he's the TNA champ. We'll see what they figure out about belts.
I thought that went to EC3.
No, he's the NWA champ.
Oh,
he's Billy Corgan's guy.
There we go. But yeah, so as far as them, and then Beer Money was Robert Roode and James Storm.
There you go.
Dude, when I think back about watching that series, I look at that as Midnight Express, Rock and Roll Express.
Pretty much.
I look at
right in that same vein of thought.
I look at that as Midnight Express, Road Warriors.
Yep.
It's just you had 4 people that had great chemistry. They were great dance partners, and they just put on a show.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff.
I mean, they went out to steal the show, and they were able to because those guys, they were in their prime. They were fresh. They were ready. Yep. And, and they just made magic out there.
Speaking of making magic, got to give some love to the ladies. One of the best women's tag team to ever come out of the sport of professional wrestling. The Beautiful People.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, I mean, the
characters.
Knockouts as a whole. Had it not been for what the Knockouts did, we wouldn't have the women's wrestling that we have in WWE. We'd still be in the Diva territory.
So that was
with Charlotte Flair running around in booty shorts, which, God, that would be a mistake. But nonetheless, I mean, that's what would be happening. That would be going on, and you'd have, you'd be trotting out like Mandy Rose, and instead of being one of the longest reigning NXT women's champions, she just would have been strict eye candy. I mean, it would have been a nightmare for women in today's day and age.
That knockout division gave so much credibility to women's wrestling.
Yeah, it showed what you could do if you give them the right amount of time and get the right talent.
And Angelina Love, phenomenal heel. Just crazy good heel. She never was a babyface in anything that I ever saw.
She has that Beverly Hills 90210 kind of bad girl attitude. Whereas her partner Velvet Sky, wasn't nothing she could do to be a heel. I mean, she could be nasty. She could she could spit venom out of her mouth and every other orifice known to man. And damn it, she was going to get cheered from the minute she bounced her way out to the ring to the minute she bounced her way out of there.
You got to let the pigeons loose.
Hey, you had to. I mean, and they would go out there and talk so dirty about the fans, and the fans would just say, "Go out there and shake your ass and do that thing when you get in your ring."
The legitimacy that they brought as far as wrestling, you had them, you had Gail Kim, you had Awesome Kong,
ODB. Don't forget her. I mean, and a host of others.
Jacqueline was in there for a while.
Taylor Wilde came through that. I mean, there's a lot of girls that came through that Knockouts division that showed what women's wrestling should be. I mean, and it was such a jump from, we had Trish, Lita, Molly, and a few other people over in WWE that were actual wrestlers. But once they kind of moved away from that, we were deep in the heart of the Tori Wilson, Candice Michelle,
Stacy Keibler
era, and I mean, we were happy there. Yeah, don't get me wrong, nobody was complaining watching WWE TV, except people who wanted to see women's wrestling. Now, if you were a fan of women's wrestling, you wanted to see them actually wrestle. Now, me at the time, I was a little bit younger, had, a little bit more single. I like pillow fights and I like pudding matches and all that stuff. But, I mean, it definitely put a glass ceiling over the women, where they couldn't become the earners that they truly deserved. It put them in a bad light. Obviously, in today's society, had they not progressed from that, we couldn't even have women in wrestling, just because, in 2023, that ain't going to be acceptable, beating up women and having women, stripping each other and all that. That ain't going to
fly these days.
So it's thanks to the Knockouts of TNA that women's wrestling is where it is today. And as much as the women of the WWE say, hey, I want to send congratulations to Trish and Lita for paving the way. I mean, they'll never say it out loud, but they need to send a lot of those kudos right on over to the Knockouts.
Absolutely. All right. So I told you my favorite was Petey Williams. So who's your favorite TNA wrestler that ever came out?
So I don't know. Does it have to be a long-term TNA guy? Can it be somebody from somewhere else?
Anybody.
Well, I'm going to go with a homegrown talent, because TNA love their homegrown talent. It's got to be AJ Styles.
AJ. Yeah.
I mean, the Kurt Angles, the Stings, the Bobby Lashleys, the Hulk Hogans, all the big names. Randy Savage came through there. CM Punk, all those names came through there. But when you think about TNA wrestling and at its core, to me, AJ Styles is the guy that identifies TNA more than any other wrestler.
AJ to TNA is Sting to WCW.
Essentially, yeah.
I mean, that's the equivalent. He was the Homer. He was the ride or die with TNA.
He was always that babyface that the fans would get behind no matter what. It didn't matter where they took AJ, when they gave him crappy creative, like when they wanted him to be Little Nature Boy, and everybody on the planet saw that was going to be a fail. Everybody knew that whole Fortune was their group or whatever. They knew that was going to suck. They knew him being Ric Flair, it coming out in the robes was going to suck.
Yeah. But
we still hung in there behind AJ, because we're like, you know what? He'll weather his way through this storm and he'll come out better on the other side. And he went from being Little Nate to Little Sting, and that kind of worked out for AJ.
So AJ in TNA, if y'all saw AJ and Samoa Joe in WWE, Go back and watch them in TNA.
When they were 15 years
When they were in
younger.
their prime.
Yeah. When they were 15 years younger.
That was an amazing series.
That was class action right there.
Yeah. AJ and Samoa Joe, put it this way. Those dudes would go for 35, 45 minutes and just really just not quit. There was no rest holds.
Well, that X Division match you were talking about earlier was AJ, Samoa Joe, and Christopher Daniels. Mm-hmm. They put on an X Division match that was equivalent to the very first TLC match we saw with Edge and Christian, the Dudleys, and the Hardys. I mean, they were on that par. They were on that level of performance that night, to whereas if you didn't know, you had never heard of TNA before, you didn't know who any of those three guys were, you found yourself looking online to say, I got to get clips to this. Because, I mean, the way people were raving about it, it was like, you'd seen poetry in motion, like almost literally. So, you were watching it. And that's why all those guys found themselves, a run on main rosters elsewhere. Yep.
So that was, TNA, the glory days. Let's hope TNA can return to some of that magic.
Absolutely.
Because, there's still places within the current wrestling landscape that you're not really getting everything. WWE is a land of entertainment.
Yeah, big time.
It is a land of wrestling, but it is predominantly entertainment.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you run a 3-hour show on Raw, 35 minutes of that may be your cup of tea, and the rest of it, you might not like.
Right, you might just have to sit through.
Right, so TNA still has a place in this landscape to give us some things that nobody else is giving us right now. Even AEW, they tapped back into the luchador scene.
Yeah.
But if TNA can tap back into that X Division scene, I really think they'll get something.
Well, AEW's swimming around. They're right now catering to the IWC, the Internet Wrestling community.
Right.
So TNA's never been an internet darling. I mean, the internet, even when the internet, AEW came into existence strictly because people said, I want an alternative from WWE. Well, AEW's been around for 21 years now. That alternative has been here for a long, long time, but people didn't want that. They, most of the guys that are in AEW now went through TNA at some point in time.
Your current TNT champion used to be TNA champion.
Absolutely.
Christian Cage.
So many of those guys went through there. The Brian Cages,
Bobby Lashley.
Yeah, well, Lashley ain't in AEW, but I mean, essentially a lot of those guys went through TNA, but they didn't click for some reason. When they went to AEW, they clicked, and it's like, okay, but the fact of the matter is that alternative was always there, but the internet wrestling community just doesn't have that kind of love for TNA. So, I mean, essentially what we're wanting to do now is generate some of that love for TNA.
Absolutely.
If you want to see something, and don't get me wrong, when we get into our wrestling talks, I know we lean more towards WWE, but I mean, WWE is the best thing going right now. So it's just kind of par for the course. But last week we were excited about NWA getting a TV deal. Maybe that'll give us something else that we can sink our teeth into. Right now, I'm interested in seeing TNA rebrand back into TNA and seeing if they could win me back as a fan. I mean, I watched TNA religiously.
Yeah, I did too.
For a long, long time. It was somewhere right around that time when AJ left that I was like, I think I'm tapping out too. AJ left, Lashley left, Kurt Angle, Sting, all that kind of happened in a big swing.
Damn you, Dixie Carter.
Exactly. I mean, and I lost interest with it too. I was like, all the guys that I watched this thing for are gone. Maybe I'm going with them. So I found myself not watching. So I'm excited to see if they can get me back.
So that was our topic for today, everybody. Let's show TNA some love. Let's give them some support as they're getting back into this thing. And here's to hoping that they give us some classics and some material that we've got to talk about that you can't deny them. They've got to just be in the conversation.
Absolutely. Give us some total nonstop action.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to our podcast today. And with that, we bid you adieu.
See you real soon.
Today's podcast was produced by SBP. You can find our podcast on all major podcast platforms. Also connect with us on our social media accounts. Search for The Bookers Alliance on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.